Hey, bud. Happy Christmas.
Hi, Jordy. Happy Christmas to you.
Are you excited for the holiday season?
No, not really.
But it's the holiday season.
And we love it. Holiday season. Can you shove it? Nobody can, because we love the holiday season. Here
I got jazz
in
hands.
the dark, dark world. Do-do-do-do. Bum, 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 bum.
Yeah, so happy Christmas, everybody. So before we get into our episode today, which is a doozy, I would say it's the most requested case we've ever had in our 2 years of existence.
By which you mean two people asked for it?
It's a very festive time here in the Dark, Dark Room. Ed C and I are together at last. We're back from hiatus, and we're going to do a little gift-giving ceremony, Ed. I thought that would be nice. Is Bodden here?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Of
we'll
course.
do our gift exchange with Dr. Michael Bodden. Is he going to dress up as Santa?
Well, yes. I mean, he's asleep, but as Santa,
Oh, is he
yes.
sleeping already? Oh, okay. Well,
It's 7 p.m.
does he get cross if he's woken up or if we wake
It'll
up?
be fun to see, quite honestly.
Yeah, whatever. Who's going to get mad when you wake him up to give him a gift?
Not Mike Bodden. I guarantee you that.
So, should we just wake him up and do the gift exchange?
Yep.
All right.
He's got to get up anyway. He hates this. He hates this, Jordan.
It's Christmas, Ed.
He really likes to come at you with the erection.
Dr. Bodden. Dr. Bodden.
All right, so Jordan found Dr. Bodden, not anywhere in my disgusting house.
No, he's not here.
What?
No, seriously, he's not here. Dr. Bodden.
Are you really fucking around? All right, so I really wish there were a video of this. Jordan is wandering around my home, which is disgusting at the moment. Are you serious?
No, he's not here.
Did you look in the bedroom?
Yeah, that's just what I was knocking.
He's not, like,
Light was on. He's not in there.
not in the garage. He's not driving in the garage?
He's not in the garage. He's not answering, bud.
Wow.
He was supposed to do the Santa suit. Hey, what's this? It's 3 pages. It's like a letter. Did you write this? It says, Mr. C, listen carefully. We are a group of individuals that represent a small foreign faction. We respect your business, spelled wrong, but not the country it serves. At this time, we have Dr. Bodden in our possession. He is safe and unharmed. And if you want him to see 2021, you must follow our instructions to the letter. Let me get to the next page here. You will withdraw $300 from your account. When you get home, hold on, next page. Last page. You will put the money in a brown paper bag. I will call you between 8 and 10 a.m. tomorrow to instruct you on delivery. SBTC. Ed, Dr. Bodden's been kidnapped.
Actually gone?
Well, he's not in the house, and there's a ransom note. I mean, I guess his body might be dead somewhere in the house, but that's unusual to find a ransom note with a body, right? Dr. Bodden, are you fucking around? Did you write this? There's some clues here. First of all, it's a waste of paper. I don't see why they needed 3 pages to write this one paragraph, really. It does seem to have a lot of extraneous content.
It sure does, and it's very well written, isn't it?
Other than spelling business wrong, it's perfect.
Biznax.
But $300, that's all they want in exchange for Bodden.
Yeah,
He's worth more than that. He's a top forensics pathologist.
Honestly, I've offered people $800 on Craigslist to take him off my hands, and $300 is a gift.
Ed, $300, did you write this? Because $300 is what I was going to give you for the Christmas.
I want to say on record, I did not write any letters.
But it's on the same pad that you always write your notes on for Dark, Dark Room episodes.
Coincidence, yes.
This letter for Dr. Bodden reminded me a lot of the JonBenet Ramsey case that took place in the late 90s.
How so?
Well, famously, in the JonBenet Ramsey case, a ransom note was found. And it was really similar to that Baden ransom note. In the early morning hours of December 26th, 1996, that's the day after Christmas, folks, Patsy Ramsey dialed 911 to report that she'd found a ransom note and that her daughter, 6-year-old JonBenet Ramsey, had been kidnapped. Soon after, JonBenet's little body was discovered in the basement of her family's Boulder, Colorado home, wrapped in a white blanket. A nylon cord was found around her neck, her wrists had been tied above her head, and her mouth was covered with duct tape. What followed could easily be described as a media maelstrom, with everyone from local journalists to CNN clamoring to know who murdered the angelic JonBenet. Boulder law enforcement initially suspected JonBenet's family, Patsy, who died of ovarian cancer in 2006, her husband, JonBenet Ramsey, and their oldest child, 9-year-old Burke. But none were ever formally charged. To this day, the case remains unsolved. So, that's the gist of it. Now, the most unusual part of that is that a ransom note is discovered asking for the ransom to be paid in exchange for getting JonBenet back. But then...
From her father, JonBenet.
Right. John
Nothing to laugh at.
JonBenet Ramsey.
He named his daughter after himself. Nothing to laugh at.
I think that was
Jordan.
Patsy, honestly.
Honestly, there's nothing to laugh at there. It's not funny that his name is John and her name is JonBenet.
Right. For those that don't know.
It's not funny.
JonBenet Ramsey is what breeds the name JonBenet. John
Literally.
Bennett. Get it? JonBenet. JonBenet.
Is that not disgusting to you?
It's
the whole
it's no more
pageantry thing.
disgusting than Junior or anything
Really?
else. I mean, it's a little annoying that they tried to Frenchitize it instead of just being like, her name is John
which I guess is
Bennett.
more like in vogue now to be French. If is je ne sais
Yeah,
quoi.
and for a pageant queen like Patsy was coming from that circuit, I mean, you know, you could see her being into that. It's like, oh, we'll give her like a French-sounding name. I'm sure that's what it was.
It sounds disgusting to me to name your daughter after yourself as a father. My name is JonBenet. My daughter is JonBenet.
Yeah.
All right,
let's get into who these people were or are. So, a little background on the family here. We riffed a little bit already on this, but named after her father, JonBenet, and her mother, Patricia, who was also called Patsy. JonBenet's full name was JonBenet Patricia Ramsey. And she was born on August 6th, the day after my birthday, in 1990, 9 years after me.
Famously, you're so young.
That's right. And she was born in Atlanta, Georgia. I was born in Cambridge, Mass.
That's the only difference.
Yeah, and a day later. And 9 years later.
Well, beauty
A day and 9 years later.
But beauty queens, both.
The youngest of two children, her older brother Burke, was 9 at the time of her murder.
Burke is the murderer, by the way.
JonBenet was an outgoing Southern gal who enjoyed being the center of attention, or so they say. By age 6, she had already won multiple pageant titles thanks to her bouncy blonde hair, poised smile, and glittery costumes. Her father, a multimillionaire businessman,
JonBenet.
and her mother, who was also a former beauty
JonBenet.
queen, Miss West Virginia, where Ed's dad's from,
God bless you, Dad, if you're listening.
1977. Now, it's important to note that Patsy was a former beauty queen and obviously pushed her daughter into being a pageant queen. This is not something that's typical of a 6-year-old in most of the United States. However, in Georgia, where they were from, it actually is fairly common. This is sort of like something like how, 4-H competitions are popular in southern states or Midwest areas. So
That's what 4-H means?
I don't know what 4-H means. I know what it is.
Horses,
and hogs.
Horses. Oh, hogs.
There are definitely hogs involved.
Yeah, 3 horses and a hog. That's what 4-H is.
Yes. So the pageantry circuit, lines like that people talk about that a 6-year-old enjoyed being the center of attention, was an outgoing Southern girl. No, 6-year-olds don't actively seek out pageantry, right? Especially to the level that this was. I mean, this was the real deal. She was dressed to the nines. I mean, all these, child pageant queens. It's a very strange life. Now, outwardly, for all intents and purposes, it seemed that John Ramsey and Patsy Ramsey doted on their daughter in any way they could. They had a luxurious home with everything that JonBenet needed to live a comfortable life, and for Burke, their older son. John Ramsey, in 1989, formed the Advanced Product Group, which was one of 3 companies that later merged to become Access Graphics. He became president and CEO of Access Graphics, which was a computer services company and a subsidiary of Lockheed Martin. So big business here for John.
And also a shout out to Access Graphics, who is our sponsor tonight.
That's right. They did the Dark Dark World logo. Did you know?
Yeah,
that?
Thank you very much, Access Graphics.
In 96, Access Graphics grossed at over $1 billion. And believe it or not, JonBenét Ramsey was named Entrepreneur of the Year.
Did he get a bonus?
By the Boulder Chamber of Commerce.
Was the bonus $180?
Not Forbes or anything. Now, after the murder of JonBenet, John Ramsey and Patsy and Burke moved back to Atlanta, and Access Graphics was then sold to General Electric in 97, and John Ramsey's net worth was reported at $6.4 million as of May 1st, 1996, just before the murder of his daughter. Now, Patsy Ramsey, Ed, grew up in West Virginia, Gilbert, West Virginia. Do you know it? Any family from Gilbert, West Virginia?
No.
Born Patricia Ann Paugh, Paugh, not like Southpaw. Patsy Ramsey grew up in Gilbert, and she and her sister Pam were pageant queens. Patsy attended West Virginia University, where she studied journalism, also like me.
Also like my dad, who went to West Virginia University and studied journalism.
Did he really?
He did.
Yeah. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Nice.
He did like PBS TV productions after college.
Huh. John and I really would get along. So much in common.
He's an insane person.
Yeah. Alcoholic liars who studied journalism.
How dare you?
So she graduated in 1978, and she married John Ramsey in 1980, 3 years after winning her 1977 Miss West Virginia pageant title. Now, John had 3 children from his first marriage to Lucinda Pash, and that's going to be important later on. But that relationship ended in divorce, and Patsy and John's son, Burke Ramsey, would be born on January 27th of 1987. And in Atlanta, Patsy gave birth to their second child, JonBenet, again on August 6th, 1990. Now, the family moves to Boulder, Colorado in 1991 for John's business ventures, and when JonBenet is just 3 years old, Patsy starts entering her into children's beauty pageants, where JonBenet would go on to win multiple pageants before the age of 6. Now, that gives us most of the background that we're going to need here, Ed. We can now jump to Christmas time, 1996, in Boulder, Colorado.
Barely knew her, Colorado.
Christmas was nice at the Ramsey house. They had a nice Christmas. A lot of gifts were exchanged. People were happy. Pineapple was eaten.
By whom?
Well,
I know it was someone's favorite
various
snack.
Members of the fam. And on the day after Christmas, everything changed.
Because it's Boxing Day. That's when you give support to postal workers and other people.
Right. And Patsy came down the stairs.
Because she's a postal worker, right?
She comes down the stairs, Ed, on December 26th and finds 3-page ransom note laid out across one of the stairs towards the bottom of the staircase. And it's a doozy of a letter that has since been analyzed by all sorts of people.
Bunch of bullshit people.
Exactly. And it's been found to be
bullshit.
76% of the content is extraneous, and only 24% of the letter was actually needed to convey the information that the Ramseys needed to try and get their daughter back. So this is a strange note to find. It was also determined that it was written on stationery and with a pen that came from
Sharpie.
within the home.
Right? A Sharpie?
That I'm not certain of.
I believe it was a marker. I'm not totally sure.
Okay.
So,
but so much so to
that it
the
could be
legal
counted on the
pad,
stuff that was in the house.
right? And they
Yes.
found the legal pad and could see the bleed
imprint,
through.
yes,
yeah,
yeah.
the imprint of the actual letter written, so they knew exactly what pad it had come from. You could do a whole episode analyzing this letter. We're not going to do that, but we will just address the fact that it's. Let's just start from, you're a mother, you come downstairs and you find this letter.
Untrue.
This lengthy letter, right, saying that your daughter has been kidnapped. You freak out. You go upstairs. Your daughter's not there. You believe this is true. Let's just operate from that being
Okay.
what's happened, because that's the information we have so far.
Can do, will do.
Now, in this letter, it says not to call the police or JonBenet will die. Your daughter's been kidnapped. We have JonBenet. I don't think it calls her by name, does it? Yeah, it just says we have your daughter. And they want the Ramseys to withdraw $118,000 from their account. Very specific number. Not $100,000, $118,000.
And I wonder how much the bonus or whatever that JonBenet got
Yeah, tell
for
us
that
that.
year was.
Tell us what you mean.
Well, I think it was around 117,000 or more.
What was?
His bonus for that year from Access Graphics.
Correct.
/ Lockheed Martin.
So it wasn't exactly 118,000.
No, it was. That's the number. That's what I was trying to land on. Yeah, I knew it was more than 117, less than 118 and $1. But
So
I
it
didn't know
was
the
the
number.
exact amount, though?
Oh
Seriously?
yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So that was his Christmas bonus from the company.
Oh, that's crazy.
Was the exact amount that he got that year. So again, you could spend a lot of time going over this letter and finding all sorts of weirdness. Now, John pointed out to police that first arrived on the scene that the amount was nearly identical to his Christmas bonus of the prior year, which suggested that someone who would have access to that information would be involved in the crime. Now, investigators looked at several theories behind the dollar amount demanded, and they considered employees at Access Graphics who may have known the amount of John's prior bonus. The ransom note was unusually long, Ed. The FBI told police that it was very unusual for such a note to be written at the crime scene. I mean, let's say you were going to kidnap a rich man's daughter, right? Because you wanted his Christmas bonus. Would you
So close to the bone right now.
wait until you got there
Absolutely not.
to write a note?
No. I already wrote
No,
it.
you'd come with
I want
it.
this Richmond's daughter. I want
Also-
that bonus money.
Probably worth mentioning. Well, I'll read a little more about this. The police believed that the note was staged because it didn't have any fingerprints except for Patsy's and the authorities that handled it, and because it included an unusual use of exclamation marks and initialisms. The note and a practice draft were written with a pen and a pad of paper from the Ramsey home.
There were a bunch of intentional misspellings as well.
Correct. Most likely intentional,
Okay.
yes.
Yes.
Probably-
Wherein more difficult words to spell were spelled correctly,
Exactly
and
right.
easier words were misspelled.
Right. So you're trying to maybe make it seem like a foreigner wrote it because you're saying you're a small foreign faction. And yet a foreigner's probably not going to use a word like faction.
Absolutely.
For instance.
Or refer to themselves as a foreign faction. No one would ever do that. I am always a local faction wherever I go. I go to
Yeah.
your house, I'm still local. I'm here. I'm local.
Right.
I go to Spain. I'm loco.
Good one. And also, when you're kidnapping someone,
Yes.
and you're demanding a ransom, you want to appear powerful, like you're in charge. You're not going to call yourself a small foreign faction, right? You want to appear menacing. We're small time.
Local
We're small
faction.
time. That's why we're asking for 118,000 instead of a mil.
Localized, tiny faction.
So little clues like that, we're tipping off the police pretty quickly here. And Ed, this part is really going to pique your interest. According to a Colorado Bureau of Investigation report, that's the CBI, quote, there are indications that the author of the ransom note is Patricia Ramsey, end quote. However, the evidence fell short of a definitive conclusion. But Dr. Michael Baden, a board-certified forensic pathologist who had consulted with both sides of the case, said that he had never seen a note like this in his 60 years' experience, and that he did not think that this was written by an outside stranger. Dun, dun, dun. However, and Ed, this will bother you, a federal court ruled it highly unlikely that Patsy Ramsey could have written the note, and they cited 6 certified handwriting experts.
Nice.
Do you believe in handwriting experts, Ed?
Nope.
Why is that?
Because it's false.
Junk science?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Ruled so many times. False, 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 false.
Now, there is a theory that could be correct, that Patsy didn't write the note.
Well, I think she could have written it, by the way. I just think that handwriting science is absolute junk science.
Right.
Including the word science is disrespectful to junk and to science and to handwriting and to everything.
Now only Patsy's fingerprints are found on the legal pad, and this was Patsy's pad. She admits to it. This is my writing pad. So it makes sense that my fingerprints are on it. Sure. But if you were staging a crime, you would be thinking, oh, I don't want to leave, fingerprints on something, so I'll write this with gloves, whatnot. What if John Ramsey wrote the note? Because if we acknowledge that handwriting science is junk science, then it's possible,
which we do agree upon,
that John could have written it too, right?
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
But we do agree that is absolute bunk junk science.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
So I'm going to assume that a 9-year-old, let's look at the living people in the house. We've got John, Burke, and Patsy. Burke's 9. I don't think he has the command of the English language that letter does yet. Although, I guess you could introduce, family friends that were there for the holidays could have written on that pad.
And the pastor or whomever was there the day after, right?
Yeah. A lot of people came into the house posthumously. Yeah. Post 911 call. It was a big mess of a crime scene. But yeah, whether federal courts want to say it's highly unlikely that Patsy wrote the letter, or people say that it seems likely that Patsy wrote the letter, I think it is pretty clear that someone within the family wrote that letter. And we'll get
someone within the house in the past hours. I'm sorry.
Yeah, within the Christmas
we gotta build
period,
to this.
The 25th, the 26th.
That no one broke in and wrote this immediately. This is a long time written letter. No one writes a ransom note that's 3 pages long, ever, in the history of ransom notes.
That's right. We look at all the famous ransom notes over the years, the Lindbergh baby.
They're all prompt.
Yeah, they convey the information needed.
Brevity is the
to
soul of
achieve
wit,
the
said
ransom.
Shakespeare, who is the first kidnapper.
The world's first. He kidnapped our hearts with his poetry.
In theater soon.
Let's put the ransom note on hold for a moment. We will come back to it. Now, I want to paint the picture of the morning of December 26, 1996 at the Ramsey house. So Patsy makes this 911 call. She's freaked out. She just says, we've had a kidnapping. Our daughter's been taken. She freaks out. She uses some unusual language in the phone call. But, no one's looking at it under a microscope yet. So what happens is 2 Boulder police respond to the 911 call, and they arrive at the Ramsey home within 3 minutes, Ed. They were quick. Not a lot of crimes in Boulder on Christmas or the day after. And they conduct a cursory search of the house, but they don't find any forced entry, no signs of a burglary, no signs of a kidnapping, really, other than this ransom note and the fact that JonBenet's not there, right? So Officer Rick French went to the basement, and this is important, Ed, because he goes to the basement and he comes to a door, and it's secured by a wooden latch. And he pauses for a second because he thinks it's a little weird, but then he just doesn't open it. He's whatever. And he later explained that he was looking for an exit route that might have been used by the kidnapper, which the closed inside peg ruled out, right? Because if it's latched from the inside, then you didn't leave that way.
Understood.
Now, JonBenet's body, Ed, believe it or not, is later found behind that door, that latched door.
I don't believe it.
Okay. Well, it's true. It was.
Well, I don't believe it, so I won't talk about it.
We're going to come back to that, though, because with JonBenet missing still, John Ramsey makes arrangements to pay the ransom. And a forensics team's dispatched to the house, and the team initially believes that the child had been kidnapped, and JonBenet's bedroom would be the only room in the house that they cordoned off to prevent contamination of evidence, because they think absolutely the kidnapper went in there because that's where John and Patsy last placed her. They put her to bed. So her room is cordoned off, but no precautions are taken to prevent contamination of evidence in the rest of the house. And meanwhile, after Patsy makes the phone call to 911, they call friends, they call a pastor. All sorts of people are arriving to the home to come and support the Ramseys. And visitors of the house picked up and cleaned surfaces in the kitchen, possibly destroying evidence. Now, at 8 a.m., Detective Linda Arndt arrives.
8:10 a.m. She was supposed to, the ransom callers were supposed to call from 8 to 10 a.m., and she showed up at 8:10 a.m.
Is that right?
That's how I remember it.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Good one. See? Ed's paying attention. So she arrives at 8:10 a.m. with the goal of awaiting the kidnapper's instructions. You make a good point. The ransom note says between 8 a.m. and 10 a.m. on December 26, we will call you with further instructions. And that makes me go, well, why leave a ransom note at all? If you're just going to be making a phone call to give instructions, why not kidnap the kid and then call and be like, hey, we have your daughter. I'm going to call you again in the morning. I'm not fucking around, right? So that's interesting. I'm going to write a 3-page handwritten note on your legal pad in the house, and then I'm going to tell you that I'm going to call to give you more instructions that I couldn't have laid out in this 3-page letter. Very odd. So no call ever comes, Ed. No one calls between 8 and 10 a.m.
Why no call?
No one wanted the money.
No call, no show.
No call, no show. Fired.
The classic.
Now, at 1 p.m., well past the cable guy's window of 8 to 10, Detective Arndt asks John Ramsey and Fleet White, are we kidding with this name? This is what's the name of the guy from Paradise Lost? Our guy.
Fleet Black.
What the fuck was his name? Like Gritch Taylor or something? It was like, what was his name? You know who I mean.
I do know who you mean.
Like the Ivy League name of the year.
Just,
what the fuck was his name?
It's floating words of
Fleet
Ivy League.
Van Der Esch or something.
That's so close. Like, Fleet Van Der Esch is good enough for me to go on right now.
Fuck was his name?
Vander Snack something.
All right. Ramsey Heathrow.
I think it was a Vander Snack.
Yeah. We'll call him that.
Snack Heathrow.
Fleet Vandersnack. So Fleet White, who is one of the friends who has come over during all this, He and John Ramsey sort of suddenly get up to search the house to see if, quote, anything seems amiss, end quote.
Well, that's prompted by investigators.
Well, what do you mean by that?
The policewoman that was on call there.
Linda Arndt?
Yeah, Linda Arndt did prompt them to do so.
But doesn't she say, we're going to do a search of the house, and that makes them get up?
No, she instructs them to...
She says go do that?
Yeah, well, to search from the top down.
Okay.
Read and look
at my understanding was that the police were like, okay, no one's calling, let's search the house. And then sort of suddenly, John Ramsey's like, hey, Fleet, let's go look. And they just start going off to look. Either way, whether she said go look or they decided to, even before the police... calling the police, you find that ransom note. I mean, I did it tonight with Dr. Baden. I looked for him, I found the letter, and then I checked again just to make sure that he, in fact, wasn't here, and he wasn't.
He wasn't there the second time.
No, and you would think that the Ramseys had really exhausted the search of their own home to make sure she had in fact been taken. But you could say that they just assumed she had been taken if she's not in her bed and there's a ransom note, right?
Yeah, no foreign faction. Like, what are you going to do? You know, like, obviously not in the house.
Try to answer that honestly, though. Would you, had someone been kidnapped and they weren't where they're supposed to be, the room that they should be in, if they're not there and you find a ransom note, would you look elsewhere in the house?
Let me tell you about losing my phone. I looked everywhere. I got 3 rooms in this house. I lost my phone. I put it in the refrigerator, by the way. That's the spoiler. But I looked I literally turned over sofas, looked everywhere. Yeah, of course you look everywhere. You know, and that's for my phone.
But that's different because you know that you don't put your phone to bed every night in the same space.
But
and that's where you find it in the morning.
You look for something that is important. You look for it. You know, you
yeah.
don't.
I mean, at the very least, you're going to go through the house calling out, JonBenet, JonBenet.
Absolutely. Or you go in the basement and look around.
But would you, though? That's what I wonder. If I really believed they were kidnapped, would I?
Yes. You would have to. Wouldn't you go insane? I mean, you've got to be locked in your house.
So I'm at home. I wake up. Declan's not in his bed.
And you're locked in, like,
and
police
there's a
are
note
there.
that says he's been taken.
And you call the police.
Yeah, I think I still would just go, Declan, you're seriously not here? Like, really check.
Yeah, because you would check everywhere.
You would.
You would check the refrigerator. You would find I found my phone, and it wasn't kidnapped. You would do that. Like, you absolutely would do that.
Yeah, I guess you would.
Search everywhere.
So it's a little weird.
It's extremely weird.
Search again. And Fleet White testifies that what happens is John Ramsey makes a beeline to this latched door that one of the officers, Officer French, had first seen. This door that's latched with a piece of wood. John Ramsey heads to this door, opens it, says, I found JonBenet, and then turns the light on to discover a body covered in a white blanket. Now, all that's there is a mass covered with a white blanket. You don't know what's under there unless you know. He doesn't even have the light on yet and says, I've found JonBenet, then flips the switch, then peels back the blanket, and it is, in fact, JonBenet's dead body. That is extremely suspect.
Does he do anything weird, like carry the body upstairs and then throw a different blanket over it?
Yes, he does.
Oh, that's a bummer.
Yeah, but we're not, I mean, how weird alone is it to just be like...
This whole thing, everyone knows all this stuff. Like, this part sucks.
Am I dumbing it down too much?
I think maybe.
Okay.
Like, everyone knows, like, JonBenet picked up his daughter's body, carried it upstairs, covered it in a different blanket that was not in the basement. Everything is contaminated and ruined. So investigation is effectively ruined. Yeah, I think that people know the nuts and bolts of this case.
Okay.
And if that's unfair, then shame on you, listeners. Look up JonBenet Ramsey on Wikipedia.com. But I think we can go from him contaminating the body and putting it in the hallway and then dragging it into the living room a couple hours after that.
Okay. So Yeah, extremely unorthodox, right? But if you're a grieving father, you suddenly find your daughter's dead body. Maybe it's a fatherly act to sort of pick it up and hold it close to you and then be like, look what I found, and carry it upstairs. Okay. But you make good point, right? It's further contaminating crime scene.
What you've been instructed not to do.
However, as you point out, you've also been instructed to go on a search, and you're an emotional father, In any event.
Horrible police work. That's undeniable.
Right.
But
as we often find in these cases, right?
We do. And horrible cover-upping from the family in this case. But the policing is so fucking bad. It's insane to me.
Yeah. And so from the off, okay, if you're the police, first we have Officer French who gets to this door and doesn't check behind it because he thinks, well, everyone's operating under the suspicion that this has been a kidnapping. There's a fucking ransom note and the girl's not here. So that's legit. Fine. Okay, she's been taken. There's no reason to think she hasn't been. Until they find this body. And then you go, oh, so there is a deeper crime here. And now everything's weird. So I don't know that. Let's say there wasn't a body in the basement. Is it still bad policing?
Yes.
Yeah, you would want that door open regardless.
Yeah, I mean, you would canvass the scene. I mean, that's the one thing I know about policing.
You would separate
canvass
the parents.
Absolutely.
Well,
they separated themselves.
You would interview them separately.
Well, they separated themselves in that. Like the main detective on the case. What's her name?
Arndt. Detective Arndt.
Yeah, like the thing.
Linda Arndt.
She has the most methy eyes I've ever seen of anyone ever interviewed. But yeah, she says like the thing she noted that the parents separated themselves throughout the entire morning, and
well, John famously disappears for like a good hour
and reads his mail.
Oh, that's what he said he was doing? No,
that's what she noticed him doing, is reading his mail.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Isn't that weird?
That's very weird.
Who reads mail?
It sounds like it might be busy work. That makes me think of when I did theater. And
oh, yeah, just doing stuff with hands. Like
I would sometimes...
apples and pears.
Yeah, and I would sometimes not be speaking in a scene, but be up on stage and being self-conscious because I'm that way anyway.
Understood.
Then going, what business can I give myself to do that I won't just be a dude standing here?
Yeah. I mean, that's theater business.
Yeah.
That is apples and pears. That's what you say when you're just a background person.
Prop.
Yeah, it looks like regular words.
Yeah, so you're performing is essentially what we've come to there by saying that. Yeah. So John's performing. And he disappears for a long time. You're right. Bad police work. These two should have been separated from the get-go and interviewed separately, but they weren't. In fact, as we've touched on before with the Paradise Lost, with West Memphis 3, Terry Hobbs, never formally interviewed. The Ramseys aren't formally interviewed. And in fact, aren't for several months. That's a whole nother can of worms, and we are going to get to it. But let's talk about JonBenet's body.
Ugh.
So John opens the latch door that Officer French had overlooked, and he finds his daughter's body in one of the rooms. And he finds JonBenet with her mouth covered with duct tape, a nylon cord around her wrists, a nylon cord around her neck, and her torso covered by a white blanket. And then he picks up the body and he carries it upstairs, further contaminating the crime scene, as we've mentioned. So the forensics team has just a shitstorm to sort through here. You've got a kidnapping, but no, actually you don't have a kidnapping. You have a murder, but now we don't know where the murder took place. Was it in the basement? Now you've brought the body upstairs. And strangely, John Ramsey, there's couches in the living room, but he lays his daughter's body down on the floor just in front of everyone. Look what I've found, this dead body. He doesn't really take any care with it. He doesn't lay JonBenet down on the couch or support her head. These are sort of loving actions that a parent would do with their child. No, he just brings her body upstairs and sort of doesn't drop her onto the floor, but just lays her down in the middle of the floor in front of everybody. It's just sort of an odd vibe to me. Anyway, as we've said that John and Patsy weren't separated and interviewed, but they were interviewed together in a sort of preliminary sense for a couple of hours, while they're waiting for this phone call with the police, with the phone call that never comes. And 9-year-old Burke is also interviewed, but not that day. He's interviewed within a couple of weeks following the death of JonBenet. But the Ramsey parents maintain that Burke was asleep from the time they put him to bed until the morning when the police arrived. And Burke was, asleep all that time and knew nothing of what was going on. He woke up when people were in the house, when the police were there and friends had come over. He woke up to all the commotion. So the autopsy reveals, and this gets hairy too. Everything about this case gets hairy. But the autopsy reveals that JonBenet had been killed by strangulation and a skull fracture. It's a big and, because the official cause of death is, quote, asphyxia by strangulation associated with craniocerebral trauma, end quote. There was no evidence of conventional rape, although sexual assault could not be ruled out. Although no semen was found, there was evidence that there had been a, quote, vaginal injury, end quote. At the time of the autopsy, the pathologist recorded that it appeared JonBenet's vaginal area had been wiped clean with a cloth. Her death was ruled a homicide. Important to note here that a garrote that had been made from a length of nylon cord and the broken handle of a paintbrush was tied around JonBenet's neck and had apparently been used to strangle her. Part of the bristle end of the paintbrush was found in a tub containing Patsy's art supplies, but the bottom third of it was never found, despite extensive searching of the house by the police in subsequent days. The autopsy also revealed a, quote, vegetable or fruit material, which may represent pineapple, end quote, which JonBenet had eaten a few hours before her death. Photographs of the home taken on the day when JonBenet's body was found show a bowl of pineapple on the kitchen table with a spoon in it. However, neither John nor Patsy said they remembered putting the bowl on the table or feeding any pineapple to JonBenet. Police reported that they found JonBenet's 9-year-old brother Burke Ramsey's fingerprints on the bowl. The Ramseys have always maintained that Burke slept through the entire night until he was awakened several hours after the police arrived.
Dun, dun, dun. Obviously.
Before we get into the theories and the suspects, I think it's important to note from the off that the Boulder District Attorney Alex Hunter seemingly protected the Ramseys by breaking various standard protocols and blocking legitimate investigation avenues in this case. And in fact, it took a few months before Patsy and John Ramsey would be officially interviewed by investigators while apart from each other. And eventually, Alex Hunter did summon a grand jury, but did so shockingly late and much to the chagrin of investigators within the Boulder Police Department and the FBI. And that grand jury, Ed, we now know, many years later, did in fact vote to indict John and Patsy Ramsey. But for reasons unknown, Alex Hunter unilaterally decided to ignore the vote and shut down any lines of investigation into the Ramseys. This decision caused seasoned investigators to step down and caused many to view the case as a total cover-up involving various members of a wealthy Boulder elite. This sounds far-fetched, but it really does seem to be the case that Alex Hunter went against protocol for the only time in his career, seemingly just to protect the important Ramseys.
Jordan, in crime history, has anyone ever covered up a crime?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Lots.
So that would be possible maybe here?
Sure.
Okay. So that's probably where I'd start.
You know what you find a lot of, Ed?
What's that?
You find a lot of murders made to look like accidents. You know what you don't find a lot of?
What's that?
Accidents made to look like murders.
How so?
Well, it's very rare that something goes wrong and you go, oh no, this horrible accident happened. Let me make it seem like it wasn't an accident, but it was actually a murder. That's rare. But that may have been what happened here.
But that seems bad.
Yeah, real bad.
So what happened?
Well, let's go through it, man.
All right.
So the first thing they want to look at is an intruder. Did someone come in here and try to kidnap JonBenet and write this ransom note and then kill her and not take her? Is this possible?
No.
It doesn't seem like it, right? And never in the history of high-profile kidnappings...
High-profile / small for infection.
Yeah, / anything, really. Has anyone ever left a ransom note for a kidnapping where the dead body is also left behind? So that's completely bizarre and unprecedented. It makes no sense.
That's why that faction is so small. Terrible at kidnapping.
Yeah, they're poorly organized.
Absolutely.
What's funny, though, Ed, is that the intruder theory...
LOL.
Yeah, is dismissed instantly. In fact, you'll see here I have LOL
He does.
in my notes.
Oh my gosh. He has LOL. I did that as a internet meme joke to respond to him in real life.
But it's actually in there.
He wrote that. He wrote LOL.
And I'll tell you why it's in there. You probably remember, Ed, in 1996, early 1997, growing up as a wee lad, that, you know, this was all over the tabloids. This was all over the media. Everyone was hearing about JonBenet Ramsey. In fact, when my family took a vacation to Colorado not long after this, maybe 2 years after, it was like a thing where people were like, oh, do you want to see the Ramsey house? Like you could drive by and see the Ramsey house. Like that was part of like going there. It was super weird. And we did. We drove by the house and I don't remember it at all. But the point is, this did become, whether it was slow news week because it's, you know, between Christmas and New Year's or what, the main catalyst, I think, was the fact that JonBenet was a pageant queen. And this became huge because there are all these glitzy, glossy photos of JonBenet that start circulating.
There's one glitzy, glossy photo that circulates everywhere. It's the same photo in all of them.
Oh, but there are lots. There's video footage. There's all sorts of things.
But it's the same ones on all news programs. I'm sorry, I'm splitting hairs here. But it's the same lipsticky, gross.
There's
pageant.
one famous one, the one that's on the cover of People.
Yes, that's the one.
Yeah, that's the famous one. But yeah, there's all sorts of, you know, basically her pageant history suddenly becomes tabloid fare, and people love that stuff because they can throw judgment at it and blame the parents, because any parent that would force their daughter to become a sexual object at the age of 6, if that's what's really going on here, is a monster and must have done something. But some push back and say, no. It's what you do with it in your mind. So the sickos out there that want to sexualize children, they have one of the steps removed for them because now this child is being presented sexually already for them, and that's going to make her even more of an object of their desire. They're going to come into the house and they're going to kidnap her, right? So these are the competing theories, but it's all spawned from the fact that JonBenet is a pageant queen. If JonBenet is not a pageant queen, this is not a high-profile murder because the Ramseys aren't like nationally famous or anything. They're not famous people like the Lindberghs. No, they're wealthy, but like a lot of people in Boulder are wealthy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, am I wrong here? Is this one of the things where Jordan oversteps and like has his own theory that's wrong? This is the reason this became big, right? Because if she's not a pageant queen, it's not a big deal.
Yeah, no, she's not a rich, white, pretty child. No one gives a shit.
Yeah, but a little more than that, right?
I don't
because
know if the pageant queen part is. I don't know.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I think you are right. I don't know. I haven't thought about it. Give me 1 second. You're right.
Oh.
I didn't think about it that way, but like the slow news time, it being right after Christmas.
Yeah, and because there are photos like, I mean, I remember my mom telling me like, God, it's so weird that they made her do that stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think a lot of families did that. Like, oh, she's 6. She looks like an adult.
Oh, yeah, no. And like there was great sketch comedies made about it.
Yeah.
And yeah, no, it was a thing. You're right.
Yeah,
You're right.
so I think that's what makes people latch onto it. But that, I suppose, is neither here nor there. The first theory we have to look at is, did an intruder come in and do this?
No.
And we have, this theory gains traction, the intruder theory gains traction because of renowned Colorado homicide detective Lou Smits, who does a documentary in the early aughts.
I would call it a mockumentary.
It really is. But, I'll admit this here, that actually had me pretty convinced years ago that an intruder theory was possible, because this Lou Smits, this homicide detective, proved that it was possible that someone had come in through the Ramsey's house basement window with the intent to kidnap JonBenet. And so what he surmises, which is why I wrote LOL in here, he comes to this theory because he sees a photo taken from the initial police investigation that shows a suitcase sort of underneath the basement window, the basement where JonBenet's body is found. And that's what snowballs in his mind this theory that essentially what Lou Smits is saying is that an intruder comes through the basement window with the intent to kidnap JonBenet, writes a ransom note using stationery and pen that he finds in the house.
Marker.
Then uses a stun gun to subdue JonBenet, or a taser, carry her down to the basement with the intent of stuffing her into a suitcase that is already in the house. Thank God there was a suitcase right there. But then realized he couldn't do it because either the suitcase was too heavy with the body in it and he couldn't get back out of the window. This is where I wrote LOL instead of just going out the front door with it. So instead, he just decides to molest and kill JonBenet and then leave, and forgot that he wrote the note and left it up on the stairs.
Hell yeah.
I'm embarrassed to admit that I thought that was legit at any point in my life.
Yeah, it's absurd.
Yeah, it's insane.
It truly is. The window hole that the person would have to break is so shattery and weird.
Yeah, I mean, you can get in there. He shows that it can be done. He
but
jumps through the window.
Shred your body doing so.
Well, no, because he actually did it, and he wasn't shredded.
But then he leaves one footprint.
Yeah, it's insane for other reasons. It can physically be done.
Yeah,
but
in like a great obstacle of instance of obstacle and circumstance where you do a flip through a window, a kickflip, obviously. One high-tech boot footprint landing on the ground, so probably like some sort of Ollie Impossible, and then kickflip onto the snow, no other footprint, and then you're out.
Yeah, essentially. Yeah, I mean, the whole thing just falls to shit
immediately
when there's a dead body. There's no kidnapping.
No, never.
And no one
is a small foreign
people
faction.
don't. You either kidnap to go and rape elsewhere,
Sure.
or you come in and rape and leave. Right? You don't do both.
The Jordy premise.
Right?
You're absolutely correct.
It's one of the other.
No, it's disgusting, but true.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's absolutely no logical or illogical reason for the reasoning they put in the note. No foreign faction, small or large, would ever do anything regarding this.
Yeah, and certainly not for a measly $118,000. It's a strange and measly amount of money for this sort of risk. John is a millionaire. You would expect millions to be requested. In any event, I think it's pretty clear we can look past Intruder. So that makes us, Ed, we famously, when we deal with child murders, we like to talk about how you start small and work out in concentric circles, and you go, who were the closest people to this person?
We love it.
Who could have murdered them, right? So if it's not an intruder, because that doesn't make any sense, it's got to be someone in the house, and that makes you think it's the parents, right?
Well, they said they didn't do it.
If you dismiss the intruder theory, which I think you have to, because of what we've already said,
Immediately, yes.
there are really 5 competing theories for what happened here. And the first we're going to address is that Patsy Ramsey did it and John Ramsey helped her to cover it up. And the theory for this would be that Patsy was annoyed by JonBenet's persistent bedwetting, which was something...
Persisted upon it.
Yeah, it was something that happened
and
a lot.
Insisted upon it.
And, you know, I'm a parent. You know many parents. You know me.
I know my parents.
You know your own parents. You know your brother's a parent.
I'm aware of that.
There are lots of challenging things that child rearing presents, and bedwetting is one of those. I never had that issue, thankfully.
Can we shout out non-bedwetting expert Declan?
Yeah. Yeah, well done, Deco.
Nice.
Well done not wetting that bed. But from my understanding, the bedwetting thing can be one of the most frustrating. And you think about it from a dog owner perspective, the dog peeing in the house is like the most annoying, like, dog care thing to deal with.
The one thing that we worked on.
Right.
Just don't pee.
Yeah, just
here.
don't pee.
Yeah, go outside.
And so there is, you know, a large body of evidence throughout history of bedwetting infuriating parents. So this is something that people grabbed onto when they found out that JonBenet was a bedwetter. And I think because of all the media scrutiny over the pageantry, people thought of Patsy as a very domineering mother who ran a tight ship, who wanted her daughter to perform a certain way, and bedwetting was not part of the etiquette of a pageant queen.
True.
Right? And so that would really piss off that sort of A-type personality mother.
Pun intended.
Which pun?
Pissing
Oh,
off.
pissing off. Yeah, good. And so the idea here would be, remember again that JonBenet, her autopsy revealed that she died from a blow to the head and strangulation. But that's sort of misleading. And
it's one or the other.
Yeah, and we'll sort of get into that a little bit later. But for now, the idea would be that JonBenet's bedwetting and or, you know, some other etiquette-related discrepancy caused Patsy to lash out and strike JonBenet over the head and then realized, oh, I went too far, I killed her. We need to make this look like something else. And then covered it up. Another theory is that John Ramsey killed JonBenet and Patsy helped cover it up. Now, the theory here was that John Ramsey might have been molesting JonBenet over time, and something on this particular occasion of molestation caused John to go too far and kill her intentionally or accidentally, and then Patsy, being in denial about her husband's sexual predation of their daughter or in fear of her life being uprooted and changed because of this, goes along with whatever John tells her to do to cover this up. Again, in the autopsy, there was some evidence that, while it couldn't be ruled out that JonBenet was sexually molested, or sexually assaulted, I should say, there was some evidence, and it's sort of weirdly worded, that there was an injury to her vagina. So something to keep in mind there, and something that maybe points to a parent molesting her. Another theory would be that John did it, and John covered it up, unbeknownst to Patsy. Now, this one's sort of interesting because...
I don't know this one.
Yeah, I didn't know it either until I prepared to do the podcast here, but there's some interesting stuff to back this one up. So the Ramseys were scheduled to take a trip to Michigan that was actually going to begin that morning, the morning of the 26th. And the idea is that JonBenet, who in this theory had been continuously molested by her father, had somehow threatened to confide in her older siblings or maybe her mother. They were going to be meeting up with the older siblings later that day on this Michigan trip, confessed to them about her father's sexual abuse. And this is precisely why John told his older children a full week before the murder not to come to Boulder for Christmas that year, which they had always done. Just as, for the first and only time, he did not take any videos of his children opening their presents that year. This is because 8 days earlier, John Ramsey began planning his daughter's murder. The same night that Patsy made 3 panicked after-hours phone calls to JonBenet's pediatrician, and this is documented. The precise moment that Patsy began to suspect that her daughter was suffering from more than just urinary tract infections and bedwetting, and requested a full pelvic exam on JonBenet. John Ramsey knew that he was going to be exposed, and so he began planning the execution of his daughter. The ransom note was little more than a ruse to fool Patsy in order to buy John some time so that he could dispose of the body before police were called. And he was sure to give himself an alibi in the ransom note should he be seen carrying a large suitcase containing JonBenet's body out of the house. The kidnappers called for a, quote, adequate-sized attaché, end quote. He was also sure to include an alibi as to why he'd be absent for some time, ostensibly delivering the ransom, but in actuality disposing of his daughter's body. With the line, quote, the delivery will be exhausting, so I advise you to be rested, end quote. People who believe Patsy wrote the note dismiss these lines as mere misdirection or the caring thoughts of a loving wife, but these are included by the author in order to help John. Why? Because John, and John alone, wrote the ransom note. Unfortunately for John, Patsy ignores the explicit instructions not to call the police and does it anyway, leaving John no choice but to stage the scene to appear as though it was a botched kidnapping. Interesting.
Not bad.
Interesting.
Not bad at all.
Yeah, I thought so. I had never come across that until this.
It just gave me the creeps.
Yeah, it's really creepy. And this theory goes further as to say, why would Patsy use her own notepad, her own Sharpie, her own paintbrush, if she were trying to direct the investigation away from her? She's not an idiot. She was a journalism major. I'm not an idiot. I was a journalism major. So you know what we're working with here.
You got no degree.
A smarty. A smarty with a Sharpie. Okay, so that is interesting, right? So,
but she had a degree, right?
She did.
And you
Something
don't.
I never achieved because I will always be a loser.
Nice.
So yeah, that's one of those chilling, like, ooh.
Yeah, no, that one really gave me the willies.
Yeah.
I had not even read that.
Yeah, that is a creepy one.
Because that adds up, really.
Yeah, it ticks a lot of the boxes.
It does.
Right?
Yeah.
But boy, that's eerie. I mean,
the amount of planning is insane. Like the other family involved like, that's all bonkers to me.
Yeah, and would you be so worried that your 6-year-old was going to expose you to your older siblings, her older sibling, half siblings?
Yeah, never. Not in Upper Michigan.
Yeah, and you'd just be like, no, kids say things. I mean, what's weirder than that would not be the fear of that happening, but JonBenet herself being like, I'm going to expose you to my older siblings when we see them.
Yeah, only in Michigan,
not
though.
my mom.
Not here in Colorado.
Right. Yeah, I'm not going to say anything to mom. I'm going to wait.
The local press here
till I
is
see
all
your other kids.
Screwed.
Yeah, so that sort of breaks it down a little bit.
Does.
But it is interesting.
No, Willie's goosebumps given for that theory. And I had not read that before.
We got 2 more here, and they don't involve the parents as much. They involve 9-year-old Burke Ramsey.
Oh, the murderer?
Dum, dum, dum. Well, there are 2 theories with Burke, and one is that Burke did it accidentally.
Yep.
He hit her intentionally, of course, but didn't mean to kill her. That's what I mean by accident. And the parents covered it up.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what happened.
And so how does that work? Well, Burke regularly lashed out at JonBenet and had documented temper issues. The idea here would be that he struck JonBenet over the head after this is a theory that's been established that pineapple that we mentioned, the bowl of pineapple that was found on the counter. The idea is that JonBenet is put to bed and Burke has a late night snack of pineapple in milk.
His favorite fruit.
Which is the weirdest.
His favorite dairy.
Have you ever substituted cereal with fruit?
Yeah, pina colada, I call it.
Yeah?
No.
Okay.
That's
I mean, I
disgusting.
understand adding fruit to cereal, but
I
not
don't even
replacing the
understand.
cereal with fruit.
I don't understand.
Just
any of
fruit and milk? That is bizarre. But apparently, the Ramseys were into it, and Burke had some of this that night.
And he got roid rage.
Now, remember, Patsy and John say they don't remember preparing any pineapple for Burke, so Burke maybe made it himself, is the idea. But
you can't make
it could
a pineapple.
Be that they did prepare it for him, but then don't want to say that they did because they know that somehow this pineapple leads to the death of JonBenet. And what's weird about that, or sounds weird to you if you don't know this theory, is that how could that possibly be relevant? Well, remember there's a little bit of undigested pineapple found in the autopsy in JonBenet's stomach. The theory here being that Burke is having a late night snack of some pineapple. JonBenet has been put to bed. She gets up maybe to go to the bathroom, something like that, and sees Burke having this tasty snack, and she wants some of it. Maybe she nicks a piece of pineapple out of his bowl or something like that, and Burke sees red, as he often does. He had, in the past, struck JonBenet with a golf club over the head when they were out playing golf.
And a baseball bat.
And a baseball bat. Lots of documented abuse, really, of JonBenet. She used to irritate him to the point where he would spread his feces throughout her room, hiding his feces in her bed, smearing it on her walls. This was a disturbed child, Burke. So the idea is that she steals this pineapple, and this was a bridge too far for Burke, and he grabs the nearest striking object, which would be somehow a mag-light-sized flashlight that he strikes her over the head with. And being a rageful child doesn't really think about the velocity with which he's using to swing this
to murder his sister.
Flashlight, hits her over the head, and maybe doesn't kill her by the ordinary definition of killing someone, but renders her brain dead at the very least. She's unconscious. He thinks that she's dead. He's trying to revive her. She's like, oh my God, I killed her. And then the parents find her like this, or Burke goes and tells them, and they think she's dead because they try to revive her and they can't, and they find no pulse, or maybe they don't check for a pulse. Because my understanding is that the head blow probably occurs first, and she's brain dead, but then the heart operates independently of the brain for a while and is still pumping. Maybe they didn't check for a pulse and she wasn't breathing.
This is theory 3 out of 5. I mean, this is the one I believe.
Well, I'm just asking you here. What do you think? Why would they, if it's the head wound that really is the death blow, why isn't the autopsy like, yeah, it was the head and then the choking was just extraneous?
They don't have any idea. I mean, it was all contaminated and post-mortem. Yeah, or not post-mortem, but way after the fact. So there's both the head wound and the asphyxiation, which are, either one is fatal. And as you pointed out, the head wound could be enough to make her brain dead, but not dead. But
then you would know, though. You would check her and be like, oh, she's not breathing.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing is bananas, but I'll just say right now, this is 3 out of 5. This is what I think happened, is that Burke went insane and hit her on the head. She was mostly dead, and the parents covered it up. And that she was maybe struggling, and they... I mean, the parents are insane.
That just made my heart sink. I had never... Because we're going to get to this... Hold that thought.
Okay.
So, whatever about brain dead. So, the theory is that Burke hits her with this flashlight, has gone too far, hit her too hard, and now she is in a bad way, either dead or very close to it. He goes and tells the parents, or they discover this, and they cover up the murder to look like something else happened, in fear of having Burke taken away from them. And some people think that that's an absurd overreaction, that why would a parent try to cover up an accident by making it look like a murder? That's such a bizarre flip.
Why not just say, dress their baby up like an adult with lipstick?
Right. Yeah. You just go, well, that's a bizarre thing to do. Yes, but if your son has a documented history of violence and doing weird things, it could be that you go, oh, God, this is really going to be the last one. They are going to take him. We're going to have no kids anymore. We've got to fix this or we're going to lose Burke. That could have been their motivation to then cover it up. The final theory is that Burke did it, and it had been Burke all along and not John who had been abusing JonBenet sexually. Or at least it was he who was responsible for the, quote, vaginal injury, end quote, in the autopsy. As I mentioned, he routinely scattered his feces around her room when angry with her and did other violent things. Not crazy to think that maybe he harmed her genitals as well. There is a book called A Foreign Faction by A. James Kohler, in which he talks about it's not beyond the realm of possibility that Burke was sexually abusing JonBenet as well. The fact is that the DA's office was quick to exonerate the Ramsey family of involvement, and the investigators were actually unable to ever eliminate them as suspects ever, Burke included. Creepy to think about.
It's horrifying.
And we know that sibling abuse happens.
Yeah, it does.
It's usually a little older than a 9-year-old. But
it's almost always older.
Not unheard of.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many terrible people out there doing terrible things all the time. I got a lot of content to cover. But yeah, I don't know. That seems so illogical to me. And the autopsy, the sexual abuse, like the constant sexual abuse by a 9-year-old brother. Like, again, none of this is fun or makes sense, but you got to find, Occam's razor it down, whatever is most sensible. And that's just too insane to consider, that she was also living through sexual abuse from her brother, who's 9, who's also living in this horrible home with these terrible parents.
Right.
I mean, regardless of what happened, that he did it, the parents are, at least one of them is aware of what's going on and complicit in it,
Yeah.
And I don't because the autopsy never showed anything of what the actual abuse was, the vaginal abuse, I'm skeptical about that. I mean, do you have more info about it?
Well,
Like, I've only read, quote, vaginal abuse, unquote, and not actually any for it, like, no DNA, nothing, just abuse.
yeah.
And so I'm just dubious. And again, the Occam's razor is that he got upset and hit her, and the parents covered it up.
Yeah, and it's possible that a lot of these different things were happening together. Could
Absolutely,
John Ramsey have been molesting her and Burke accidentally killed her?
Truly.
Could Burke have been molesting her and accidentally killed her? You brought up DNA. I'll say this now before we get into some of the stuff I wanted to go back to. In December of 2003, forensic investigators extracted enough material from a mixed blood sample found on JonBenet's underwear to establish a DNA profile. And that DNA belonged to an unknown male person.
Which excluded
the DNA of each of the Ramseys. And the DNA was submitted to the CODIS system. This is the database we refer to all the time, CODIS, the FBI's system. Contains 1.6 million DNA profiles, but the sample didn't match any profile in the database.
everyone in the database is criminals, by the way.
Right.
Like
Criminal
felony
database.
penal.
Right. In 2016, a report said that new forensic analysis with more sensitive techniques revealed that the original DNA contained genetic markers from two individuals other than JonBenet. A. James Kolar, who wrote the Foreign Faction book, who was the lead investigator for the DA's office, said that there were additional traces of male DNA found on the cord and paintbrush that Boulder District Attorney Mary Lacey did not mention, and that there were 6 separate DNA samples belonging to unknown individuals that were found by the test. Now, we're big fans of Henry Lee here on this podcast, famously from the OJ case and the Staircase case.
And not big fans.
Yeah, not really. Yeah,
He's
sort of a
false
douche.
science. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a false scientist just like the others. But he believes that sort of thing can be dismissed pretty easily as, trace DNA, touch DNA that comes from people even packaging the panties.
6 possible DNA possibilities?
Well, no, at least like one of those. Or
well,
like,
I'm just throwing shade at the entire, I'm agreeing with Henry Lee here.
Gotcha.
That there are 6 possible maybe DNA matches of people that aren't JonBenet.
Yeah, listen, you take you want to take touch DNA on anyone's clothing right now, you're going to find a lot more than you would think.
Even in quarantine times.
That's true. You're going to find like 5 to 6. Pour a little liquor out for the guy I'm about to mention here, because forensic pathologist Michael Bodden said, quote, trace amounts of DNA can get on places and clothing from all different non-suspicious means. There's no forensic evidence to show that this is a stranger murder. End quote.
Dr. Bodden?
We miss you, Mike. So, let's break this down, Ed.
All right, let's get into it, and then I'm going to give up on life.
Ed, you freaked me out a little bit ago when you mentioned... Okay, here's the thing. Listeners of Dark, Dark World, you guys have been asking for this, and I'm with you. This has always been one of my, we call them pet cases sometimes, or our favorite, quote-unquote, favorite cases. Yeah, and then we shame ourselves for saying it. Yeah, it's a gross thing to say, but you know what we mean. And obviously, this is a case that resonates with a lot of people. It's one of the big ones. It's one of the big mysteries. Everyone loves the mystery cases that aren't solved. They want to keep talking about them, and that's cool. We're with you. I don't know what we can bring to it, so I'm looking for things that I know aren't talked about often with this case. And one of those things is that whether you believe that Burke Ramsey killed JonBenet accidentally or intentionally, or whether the parents hit her over the head out of anger or something like that, or John Ramsey was trying to kill her, most of those theories require you to go, okay, they found a child hit over the head that was dead or near dead, and then went through the process of garroting the corpse of their 6-year-old daughter extraneously. They didn't need to do it, is what I thought. I always pictured just being like, this is a body that you already think is dead, but you want to make it look another way. So you're going to put aside your grief over the fact that your daughter is now dead, and you're going to strangle her dead body to make her more dead and look dead in a different way. How do you get to that place? If I'm a father and one of my children has accidentally killed the other, I have to put aside all my emotions with that and then go hurt that body more? Oh my God. And then keep it together when police come over? That is for me, a bridge too far. I wouldn't be able to hold it together. But I think that's maybe what happened here. And then, Ed, you said something when we were breaking this down. You said that maybe she was still fighting for life. And I had never considered that they maybe found a shaking JonBenet or a quivering JonBenet, and then it was almost an act of mercy to choke her out. I had never thought of that. The making of the garrote would have to be after the fact, though, I would think. I don't think he would let the body quiver there while you made a weapon and then did. Oh, this is awful. Happy Christmas.
I quit.
I'm kind of with the people that think if it was an accident and Burke hit her like kids do, why take it to this weird extreme where you stage this cover up? Why not just be like, our son hit her, and yes, he's been troubled and has issues. Maybe that does require him to go see someone or maybe even go to a place. Is that so much worse than garroting your kid to save the other?
I don't know. I mean, I legitimately do quit the podcast. Like, this is it. I'm done with true crime. But I don't know. It makes more sense to me than anything else. None of it makes sense. Like, there's no good theory. Like, there's nothing that works for this. You know, that's like, oh, that's cool. It was like a shooting star that hit her or whatever. You know, like, whatever happened fucking sucks. And I quit. So, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Is that fair?
Yeah. I mean, it is.
I really hated this. I hated it so much.
You make a good point that whatever happened, it's something awful and sad, and it's either a mother killing her daughter and covering it up, or a father killing his daughter and covering it up, or a parent helping another parent protect an awful secret, or a child who has horrible behavioral issues, who hurts his sibling and then did the ultimate harm to her, and then the parents covered them up. So there's like love twisted within hate and violence. And it's just a gross... This is the stuff that makes us go, oh, we should be ashamed. Why are we talking about this?
And we are ashamed, right?
Yeah, I mean...
This is a stereo shame.
I'm fine. But
damn it. One of us is ashamed.
I'm good. I'll sleep fine. But...
I love you, Jordy.
I love you too, bud. But you make a good point. I mean, you're just like, let's... What are we bringing to this? It's done. You can all go on Wikipedia. It's all there.
Exactly.
But I'm just going to break down these last few facts.
Okay, I apologize.
That have come in recent years, and this really got the Burke thing rolling. Jim Clemente and Laura Richards, they did this CBS documentary called The Case of JonBenét Ramsey, and this came out in 2016.
Thank you.
This really got the Burke theory rolling. And this, I'm just going to point out, these were the things that they illuminated that really changed really swayed the masses from the intruder possibility, or the parents did it, to this Burke theory that really has taken hold and is the right theory. If we're not going to mince any words,
Yeah, and
the Burke theory is probably the right theory.
agreed.
Burke is the Terry Hobbs of this case.
Yeah, the murderer of the child.
And what they illuminated was what they did. They enhanced Patsy Ramsey's 911 call, which was interesting. They got some Patsy thinks she hangs up the phone at the end of the call. Did you see this, by the way?
I did.
Okay, so you know we're pulling from the same thing here. So she thinks she hangs up the phone on one of these because they had a phone on the wall. She goes to hang it up, but it actually doesn't hang up, and it keeps recording for a little bit. And so Clemente and Richards, they enhance this call, and they find that there were other voices in the background, which are probably John Ramsey, Patsy Ramsey, and Burke Ramsey talking, and it sounds like Patsy says, "Okay, we called the police, now what?" And then the next voice is sort of muffled, and then you hear the voice that's presumably John Ramsey saying, "We're not speaking to you." And then Patsy saying, "What did you do? Help me, Jesus." And then Burke asking, "What did you find?" So if it was Burke speaking at the end, that contradicts the Ramseys' statements that their oldest son was sleeping through all of this. But, this isn't necessarily conclusive evidence. This is just people messing around with Pro Tools and thinking that they heard these things. They also illuminated that lots of the lines in the Ransom Note were pulled right from movies like Dirty Harry and Die Hard.
For sure. I mean,
which is hilarious.
Everything about the Ransom Note is just absurdity.
Cartoonish, yeah. It's ridiculous.
And not even worth getting into.
The discovery of JonBenet's body in the basement was likely staged. We already talked about that. John turning the lights on after he said he found her. And that's where they really figured out that the flashlight was probably the murder weapon, and even built a skull that resembled a 6-year-old child's skull using pig skin, and had a 10-year-old boy come in and hit that fake skull with a mag light, and it created almost the exact same sort of injury that JonBenet had. So it really just brought a lot of the Burke theory to light, and so much so that Burke Ramsey and his lawyers sued CBS for defamation to the tune of $750 million over that documentary, which was then settled, quote, amicably to the satisfaction of all parties, end quote. Most recently, the Burke theory came to light. Burke went on Dr. Phil, as Ed mentioned earlier, and that was super weird. A lot of people thought Burke was too smiley in that, which is whatever.
Yeah. No,
it's weird
bullshit.
to be in public.
Anyone's analysis of that is complete bullshit.
Yeah, exactly. It's weird to be on camera. It's weird to be on TV with a celebrity, and especially being there to defend that you didn't kill somebody. You're going to act weird.
Absolutely.
Any number of these theories could work. Not all of them work. Some of them work. But I think the Burke theory ticks the most boxes.
It's the strongest.
And makes the most sense. It does sort of, for me, though, break down with the, why not just say this is what happened? Tell the truth. What would be the worst thing that happened, do you think? Would he go to
he'd go to
an institution?
a correctional home for...
Would he?
Probably for a couple of years. I mean, for murdering his sister,
But a 9-year-old hitting a... Does he know that he's going to kill her?
I have no idea.
No, yeah, I'm hashing it out with you.
And so what makes
Although if he's
most comfortable sense to me
room.
is that he accidentally hits her, she dies, the parents cover it up.
Yeah,
and
I'm with you.
But
I just
the responsible thing would be to say, our son hit our daughter and she is almost dead. Send an ambulance, fix her, and then take this kid away, the boy, Burke, and put him somewhere. Not that the correctional facility is going to do anything, because we know that it does not.
Right. But he'll go somewhere, and they won't have any kids in the house anymore.
Well, or that JonBenet is not totally dead. I don't know. Like, this is what's terrible, is that I'm hoping it was out of mercy.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It's borderline.
See, once again, I never thought of that.
I
never thought of mercy.
I think I'm being a coward here.
No, I think it's really brave and exploratory, because I never thought of that. I always just assumed they found her dead, and I never thought of mercy.
Jordan asked me if I did crack earlier, by the way.
If you'd ever done crack, not if you currently do crack, but have you ever tried crack?
Never.
Ed said no. I said yes.
And that's why Jordan
I have so many
the best.
Gross stories of doing crack with even grosser people.
I'm so excited.
Doing awful things.
And so we'll see those stories next year. Love you, listeners.
Dark
Worm.
Dark World is a bi-weekly true crime podcast, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google, iHeartRadio, and just about everywhere else you can find podcasts. You can visit us on our website at www.darkdarkworld.com. There you will find our online store for various merch items, as well as all of our contact info, including all of our social media profiles. You can gain access to ad-free episodes by supporting us on Patreon for as little as $2 per month. There, in addition to ad-free versions of all of our episodes, you'll have access to bonus episodes, blooper reels, video, and a discount for our merch store. So check us out over there at patreon.com/darkdarkworld. That's patreon.com/darkdarkworld. If you're enjoying the show, please tell your friends and family about it, and consider leaving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. It's really beneficial to the show, and it goes a long way. I've been Jordan Crittenden. Thank you for listening.